We are pleased to inform that the conference brought together hundreds of participants, scholars, industry experts, and decision makers. As already mentioned, we have 5 keynote speakers, 3 invited speakers, and 8 industry speakers. The number of nationalities being attended at the conference is more than 10. We are pleased to have that, welcome them all. This is going to be one of the biggest gathering of scholars and experts in any international conference organized by the IUB so far. We are grateful to all the participants of the conference to be present here today and making us proud of you. The theme of the conference, as you already know, is sustainability-focused industry trends in global research. The conference shall provide a platform for researchers, academics, industry leaders from across the world to promote, share, and discuss various new ideas and developments in the areas of business, technology, and entrepreneurship. Our major focus in this conference are 3: collaboration between academic and business, cooperation among education institutes towards advancing higher education and training, and also media role in spreading knowledge and information, innovation across a greater audience, be it local, regional, or global. Our expectation from the conference would expect that the participation, discussion, and sharing of experience will continue among us even after when we return to our respective workplaces. We also hope that the conference will enrich our knowledge and serve as a catalyst in our future endeavors. Not the least, we hope the conference builds a strong bonding among all of us present and on a continuing basis. Wish you all a great success of the conference. For our foreign dignitaries, we wish you a pleasant and memorable stay in Dhaka. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you, Honorary General Chair, for your gracious and inspiring opening. Now, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Daniel W. Lund, Honorable Pro-Vice Chancellor of Independent University, Bangladesh, to share his brief remarks. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody who has come here today, those that have traveled far and those that have traveled near. Some took airplanes and some took a rickshaw. And again, there's events like this are actually fabulous. And those that are academics that have, for many years, have been to many conferences, you know that sometimes you might have met somebody at a conference 10, 15, even 20 years ago that is still a friend, still a colleague, and maybe somebody that you ended up helping get a job or get a job with and now you're working with. So I'd encourage all of the students especially, meet people. You can have an opportunity at a conference like this to be bold and to step outside of maybe your regular character and say, hi, who are you? Or say, hi, my name is something, what's yours? There's a great opportunity at conferences because there's an expectation that everybody, or most people, maybe don't know everybody. So use that opportunity while you're here. And again, conferences are about sharing knowledge. One part is sharing knowledge. And knowledge is an interesting thing because just in and of itself, it's like a library that nobody visits. But then understanding is the big part, where you're analyzing how that knowledge can be applied in practice. And then the most rare of all, and hopefully we can come to that, is wisdom. Wisdom is that application of the understanding in relation to the knowledge to some practical purpose to make your environment or the world or your workplace a better place. So I wish you all the best at this conference, and I hope we all find knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and I hope we all make new friends and lasting friendships. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, for your insightful remarks. May I now welcome Mr. Didare Hussain, Chairman, Board of Trustees, Independent University, Bangladesh, to the podium to share his remarks. Sir, please come forward.
I'm always at unease before the lecture. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Dr. Zilur Rahman, a person who doesn't need to be introduced. And he has an illustrious career. He came back from USA to serve his people and does a lot of good things, even which is not mentioned. He runs philanthropy. He's a big philanthropist, their family. They run hospitals and all in their localities, and he's one person who gathers information from the grassroots. With that, I'd also welcome, if my memory is okay, Mr. Westholt, Mr. Bevafe, Doctor, Emeka, Dr. Jonathan Liu, Dr. Maniam, and all of you. This is a very serious thing that we are going to, the discourse upon in the next 2 days. The subject is very relevant in our world, especially when we talk about AI, and then these days I hear blockchain, then supply chain. So to me, these are all Greek, but that is the future and we have to accept it. When I read what Vietnam and China is doing, they are introducing AI at school level. And they are ready for the fifth revolution. And we are trying to graduate from third. We have a long way to go, and I'm truly appreciative of Dr. Mahmood, and then our leader, I say, Dr. Habib, who has coordinated and moved with his team, and I think next 2 days will be very enlightening for all of us. So I would like to thank you all for coming, and especially our future, our students. You need to learn and adapt because the whole world is changing so rapidly. And if we are not at it, we'll be left behind and we'll not do much. So with that, wishing you everyone a very good next 2 days. And Dr. Hassan, forgive me for not mentioning you. He's been with the World Bank for 30 years and a lead economist. And he speaks Bangla. So other students, I would like you to interact with him and of course with all the dignitaries here, all the luminaries. So thank you very much, and we welcome you, a heartfelt welcome, and let's look forward to next 2 exciting days. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman, Board of Trustees, for your inspiring words and your continued support for IUB's academic initiatives. It's a great honor to have our Chief Patron, Professor Dr. M. Tamim, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Independent University, Bangladesh, with us today. Sir, I cordially request you to take the floor and address our audience with your valuable perspectives.
Good morning. Honorable Chief Guest, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this international conference sponsored by the School of Business and Entrepreneurship of Independent University of Bangladesh. As my Pro Vice Chancellor told, that conferences are fun time, and also at the same time, it's a opportunity to bring in new ideas and new technology. And I'll just start with something you might find interesting. Can we run the video?
The core mission of Icebtm 2025 is to directly translate academic insight into industrial applications. The conference is designed as a collaborative workshop for the future, deliberately bringing together researchers and industry leaders to bridge the gap between academia and industry. As universities around the world strive to create greater impact in society, IUB recognizes the importance of bridging academic excellence with industry-driven practices.
Well, I'm sure many of you could identify that this is an AI-generated message. So people, especially when I showed this to my daughters, they were laughing. They said, no, you don't walk like that, you don't talk like that. But for people who don't know me, would believe that this is me. So AI, this was a good purpose, and the message was okay and everything is fine. But then AI can be very tricky. The ethical use of AI has become a major issue, and the bias, because AI is human trained, right? Whatever artificial intelligence is actually human intelligence transferred into artificial to machine. And if there is bias, if there is prejudice, that can creep in, and then AI become very dangerous. And any AI-driven decision-making is also a difficult task to monitor in terms of transparency and accountability. So the ethical use of AI is becoming a major issue, and this conference will address many of those issues. And economics is another area which is part of the deal, and we know in Bangladesh, we are facing, the major difficulty we are facing is the inflation. Post-COVID, post-Ukraine war, inflation went up everywhere in the world. And majority of those has come down. But Bangladesh, even with a very strict contractionary monetary policy, the inflation is not going down to our expectation. It is going down very slowly, and that is creating a problem. There are multiple reasons for that. Just monetary policy is not going to control the inflation in Bangladesh. There is a supply chain issues, demand-supply imbalance. Fiscal measures are not really that much of a restrictive, not yet, but controlling this inflation is going to be a challenge. So the economic challenges are also going to be in the conference topics. And then, of course, technology. We are focused on technology-driven contemporary issues, and we want actually problem-solving solutions. So we encourage our students now to outcome-based, practical, solution-based research instead of focusing on basic research, which is more theoretical. So business is very much now, I'll give an example of the current latest economic Nobel Prize was this, what do you call that, creative destruction. Creative destruction is the way to go. You find new ways to deliver, and progress happens with the new technology. The button phones or flip phones were replaced by smartphones. Walmart has been replaced by Amazon to some extent. So the business models are changing, the technology is changing, and we are destroying the old system to create new one, and that is making progress for human race. So that is how we are trying to train our students. A very problem solution oriented education curriculum. We do upgrade our curriculum very regularly. Every 3 years we look into our curriculum. It is mandatory for them to revise the curriculum so that, and then industry relationship is also very important. We have already done in IOB, all the departments, not only business school, has done a skill mapping with the industry. They have gone to the industry, found that what are the kind of skills that is required right now for creating that problem solving, the tools that is required to solve the problems of real life. So we are upgrading our curriculum accordingly, and I'm sure this conference will give opportunity for our students. We have 70 student papers in this conference. So that's a great encouragement for our students. They will be able to come and see the world. We have representatives from more than 10 countries who are coming here with ideas and sharing their research topics and industry experience. And that will be a great exposure for our students. And hosting these conferences is actually basically all for our students, so that IUB can contribute for the advancement and development of this country, along with the world, of course. So I welcome you all again to this conference, and I hope all of you will go back with great memories and enriching your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chancellor, for your motivating remarks and visionary leadership. And I'm pretty sure the topic of creative destruction and artificial intelligence will be broadly covered in our parallel sessions. It's my pleasure to invite our guest of honor, Mr. Saeed Nasim Manzoor, Managing Director of Apex Footwear Limited, to deliver his remarks. Sir, please.
Just exit this? Yeah. Where's my one? Can you just give me the test? It's that one, yes. Thank you. Perfect. Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman, Special Guest Chair, Mr. Didar Hussain, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Tamim, Professor Daniel Lund, Pro Vice Chancellor, the Honorary General Chair, Professor Dr. Raisul Awal Mahmood, and the General Chair, Professor Habib, and of course distinguished academics, presenters, panelists, visitors from abroad, and most importantly the students. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. My name is Syed Nasim Manzoor. I work for a company called Apex Footwear. We are proud shoemakers in Bangladesh. We sell in Bangladesh as well as across the world. We work in retail, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, services like financial services, advertising, consumer research, as well as banking and insurance. And it's a great pleasure and an honor to be here standing in front of this distinguished audience. I'm a little intimidated because I realize how many PhDs are in the room, so I have to be a little bit careful. But then I live with a PhD, so I have some experience, so hopefully I'll get through this all right. I've been asked to speak for about 20 minutes, so I'll try and keep to that time. The topic today is something that's very close to my heart. It's something that Dr. Hossein Zillur and I have had the privilege to discuss very recently. Pure coincidence, sir, I think, but we... Oh, okay. So the point today is to talk a little bit about what manufacturing is going to be in Bangladesh. So today's morning session, I've just been informed, is not starting yet. My 20-minute is not yet started, so I can recover some time. Let me just preface a little bit of what we are going to discuss today and what we hope to get out of it. I think events such as this are critical for the future of Bangladesh manufacturing. As we transition from a manufacturing system that is based purely on arbitrage of labor to manufacturing based on sustainability and core values, these kind of industry-academia connections are critical for our future success. Bangladesh is privileged to have some of the youngest people in the world in our workforce, but creating the kind of quality jobs that are needed for these people is the challenge of modern industry in Bangladesh. So when we talk about, as Professor Tamim said, skills, we talk about the challenges of AI. Yes, Bangladesh is one of the lowest exposed countries to AI in terms of job destruction, but it's also an opportunity to create new kinds of jobs. So I think this kind of discussion today, the fact that we have so many students participating, presenting, we have some of the major corporates of Bangladesh in the room, I think this is an exciting time to think about the next factory of the world, if I may. We all know that the current factory of the world, and I'm looking forward to Dr. Westphal, is done. And there is need for risk diversification, source diversification. And Bangladesh is perfectly positioned, not only in terms of our demographics, not only in terms of our cost structure, but also geographically, to be a +1, +2 solution. So in order to do that, we need to create the skills, we need to create the infrastructure, we need to have the enabling government policies, but most importantly, we need, as was said, knowledge and wisdom. So I believe that this entire event over the next 2 days, and particularly the panel discussions and the presentations will hopefully take us along that journey. We are delighted and proud to be part of this, and we look forward to some meaningful discussions. Thank you so much for allowing me today.
Thank you, Mr. Manzoor, for your insightful observation and strengthening the bond between academia and industry. We now come to the highlight of the inaugural session, the address by our chief guest, Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman, Executive Chairman, PPRC, and Chairperson of BRAC. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rahman with a big round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. It's an absolute honor to be here in this gathering, which brings together a range of people, which is very critical in this moment in Bangladesh and across the world also. The world of knowledge and the world of practice coming together for a shared conversation of how our collective way forward can be envisioned. And here also I applaud the presence of young scholars. 70 papers from students was mentioned. That's a wonderful addition to knowledge and conversation events like this. Independent University of Bangladesh is one of the leading knowledge institutions of Bangladesh, and it is very fitting that such an event is being organized under the auspices of this independent university. I am very privileged that 3 colleagues who I journeyed together at various stages of my life are today sitting on this stage. The chair of the Board of Trustees, Didar Hussain, was my classmate in my college days. And one anecdotal fun story was that in our final year, we had to walk from Chittagong to Dhaka as part of our training, which we did, right? Didar? We did. The second person who is also on the stage, Professor Raisul Awal Mahmood, was my colleague in the Bangladesh Institute of Development Studies when I was a researcher in that national institutions. And the third person is the Vice Chancellor, M. Tamim, who was my colleague in the Advisory Council of the Caretaker Government in 2008. So I'm very privileged that at various stages of my life, three distinguished persons are also here with me on this stage. And I'm very thrilled to see a number of scholars from abroad who have also joined this event. I think these knowledge exchanges are so central to building what we call a common and shared understanding, because the challenges being faced by Bangladesh are not unique to Bangladesh. They are being faced across the world, across the global south, across the developed world also. So there are commonalities, there are differences, and hopefully this conference will come to grips with many of the specific challenges that should concentrate the minds of those present in this room. I'll have an opportunity to talk a bit more in a session just following this, but I really want to congratulate Independent University, the organizers, Professor Mamun Habib have been, I've been in contact with him for a long time, and all those assembled here. I wish everyone a wonderful 2 days of talking, of conversing, of making connections, and of building new perspectives. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rahman, for your inspiring address. Your words will undoubtedly set the tone for the meaningful dialogue that lie ahead. To conclude the inaugural session, may I now request the General Chair of Icebtm 2025, the man of the moment. This international conference is the brainchild of this globally acclaimed academic scholar who led a big team from the front to make this conference happen. Please join me in welcoming Professor Dr. M.D. Mamun Habib to deliver the word of thanks.
Sponsor the list of sponsor the list কোনটা এই sponsor the list কোনটা এটা sponsor the list আছে একটা Welcome to ICEBTM 2025. Welcome to Dhaka, Bangladesh. Finally, we are in this August gathering. Honorable Chief Guest, special guest, guest of honor, my dear colleagues, distinguished keynote speaker, invited speaker, industry speaker, academicians, and corporates. Assalamu alaikum, a very good morning. It's okay. I'd like to start with a special reminiscences. Do you know that today our proposed conference title, International Conference on Economics, Business and Technology Management, it was proposed in February 2020. And our first initiative to organize this international conference in January 2021. Due to the pandemic and other internal issues, we have had to reschedule several times. I can recall that the theme of this conference, sustainability-focused industry trends in global research, was brainstormed and fixed during the period of February 2020. After 5 years, 9 months, today we are here, thanks to Almighty Allah. In this conference, we have the 300 participants,
including 212 papers, among of them 70 papers accepted from the undergraduate students. Initially, we received the 290 papers. After a rigorous peer-reviewed process, we accepted 212 papers. We use the Turnitin software, AI generative tools to ensure the similarity index of the papers. In this 2 days conference, you will experience with the 5 keynote speech, 8 industry talks, 3 invited speakers, 25 parallel sessions for oral presentation, and 1 poster session. Each parallel session will consist of 8 papers on various pertinent contemporary issues on business and management. In addition, there is some special salient feature of this conference. You can see PhD colloquium and paper producing workshop, meet the journal editors, 2 academia industry discussion among the academicians and corporates. This conference program schedule, conference proceedings of the abstract and full paper have been published on the conference website. If you go to the conference website, you can get the full paper proceedings and abstract proceedings from there with the ISBN number, International Standard Book number. All full papers have been provided on a USB drive. Hard copies of program schedule, abstract proceedings are available in your conference kits. So if you like to get it, you can search from your conference kit. Selected papers will be published with the prior modifications in various scopus in the journals, book chapters, in Taylor of Francis, and Springer Nature. In this conference, we have the academic partners from the International Business School, Manchester, UK, University of Malaya, University of Nottingham, Malaysia, University of Texas Arlington, UTA, University Tun Abdul Razak, University of Malaysia, Shinawatra University, Thailand, Political University of the Philippines. Adding more value to this conference, we have the organizational partners, including the Australia International Collaborative Research Organization, TIIKM Sri Lanka, BIOSPOA. We have the hospitality partner, the Westin, and knowledge partner, Bangladesh Brand Forum. We have foreign delegates from the more than 12 countries, including USA, UK, Australia, Malaysia, Canada, Thailand, Japan, India, Poland, UAE, and Oman. Furthermore, a significant number of the top-notch academicians like Vice Chancellor, Pro-Vice Chancellor, prominent industry practitioners like C levels, including the Chairman, Managing Director, CEO are participating in this conference. On behalf of the organizing committee, on behalf of the conference committees, I am grateful to have the support of key players in the local industry, particularly our platinum sponsors, Apex Footwear Limited and Guardian, and the Dhaka Bank. We are also thankful to our gold sponsor, New Asia, Abdul Monem Group, silver sponsor, Roima Froze, ACI Motors, Avista FS Limited, supporting sponsors, Dutch Bangla Bank, and Matador. Some of the top management from those sponsors are already available in this conference. We are honored to get them in this August occasion. I'd like to give the special thanks to my dynamic, super talented, energetic team members, including Conference Secretariat, Executive of the Conference Secretariat, Outreach Committee, Publication Committee, Branding Committee, Organizing Committee, Technical Committee members, reviewers, session chairs, moderators, and advisory boards. The last but not the least, I express my gratitude to the print and electronic media, particularly those who are covering this conference. Finally, I'd like to give the special thanks to our ESTCDT and Board of Trustees of IUB, particularly our Honorable Chairman, Mr. Didar Hossain, Chief Patron of Icebtm 2025. Thank you, sir. Before finishing, I'd like to remind you about the use of technological advancement in this conference, particularly QR code for the registration, QR code in your invitation card. You can explore the program schedule from there. Our video presentation with the AI, updated conference website, online submission, payment gateway for the online payment. Today, this event will be live in Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. So let us enjoy our today's ICBTM 2025 conference, explore the new ideas, brainstormings, intimate with the industry people and scholars. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind acknowledgements and closing remarks. Before we officially conclude the inauguration, we have a very special moment, the booklet unveiling ceremony of ICEBTM 2025.
See, they are confused. Yes, please hand over the booklet to our honorable guest, one by one, please. Volunteers. Yeah, may I request our honorable guest to stand up a bit? All right. May I request our honorable guest is to unveil the conference booklet. This booklet represents months of dedication, collaboration, and scholarly effort, capturing the essence of ICBTM 2025. Can we give our guest a big round of applause, please? Just a few moments to take some photos. Just can't do that. Integration slide. Integration slide.
Just a moment, please.
A big team worked tirelessly to make this happen.
Thank you to our distinguished guests for gracing this moment. Dear audience, that brings us to the end of our inauguration ceremony. We look forward to your active engagement over the next 2 days, sharing your insights, helping us connect and network, and contribute to making this conference a truly rewarding experience for everyone. Now, as we get ready to begin one of the most anticipated segments of today's program, the keynote session, we kindly request you to remain seated for the next couple of minutes, please.
Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen. This is the end of our inauguration session. We appreciate your participation here.
Thank you.
Go forward and protocol them. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again. We are honored to have Dr. Hussein Zillur Rahman, Executive Chairman of the Power and Participation Research Center, PPRC, and Chairperson of BRAC, as our keynote speaker for today's session. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rahman to the stage one more time. Please give our guest a big round of applause.
Right. Our first keynote session will be chaired by Professor Dr. M. Tamim, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Independent University, Bangladesh. Professor Tamim is a distinguished academic and a leading expert in energy policy, currently serving Independent University as the Vice Chancellor. Prior joining IUB in December 2024, he was the professor of petroleum and mineral resources engineering, as also served as the dean of the Faculty of Chemical and Minerals Engineering at BUET. Moreover, in 2008, he served as a special assistant to the chief advisor of the caretaker government, overseeing the Ministry of Power, Energy, and Mineral Resources. We warmly welcome our session chair for our first keynote speech, Professor Dr. M. Tamim, to join us on stage.
Thank you. It's a great privilege to be sitting with Professor Hussein Zillur Rahman. As he has already mentioned, we worked together in 2008 in the caretaker government. He was in charge of education and what was the other? Commerce and education, and very successful minister, I must say. In those two years, he made a lot of changes, a lot of policy decisions, changes were made, and but his main passion is working for the people. PPRC has been the pioneer in terms of gathering grassroots data and analyzing the real need of the people of this country, especially the economic aspect of it. although they have worked in education, in health, in other areas as well. And he has been the pioneer researcher, and now with the bigger responsibility of the chairman of BRAC, which you know is the largest NGO in the world actually, and but still carrying on his work of research. That's his passion. Dr. Hussain, please. Yes, you may use the podium. Thank you.
Good morning again. I take this opportunity to the ambition of the conference. The title is Economics, Business and Technology Management. I'll not be speaking to any particular specific theme within that, but trying to, in a way, draw some big ticket pictures in the context of which these issues of economics, business and technology management should be thought about. So I have taken the liberty of a bit maybe presumptuous title for my brief speech, which I'm calling Reimagining Change. Because what we are looking for actually is change. And I want to really focus on certain critical aspects of reimagining, which is necessary. I think in the inaugural session, creative destruction was mentioned as this year's Nobel Prize in Economics, the ones who won it, there was their contribution in that field. So change, I think this gathering here, I am confident that will contribute through knowledge, through new connections to this process of change. But when you talk of change, it's very important to understand what is the starting point from which we are thinking about change. Because understanding the starting point is absolutely critical. Otherwise, you can get trapped in, past glories. You can get trapped in problems of yesterday, which have long been, superseded maybe. So I've taken the liberty of trying to sketch for you what is the starting point for change that we should be considering today in this conference, and in fact, in Bangladesh as a whole. And I want to highlight a few features of the starting point, which are very relevant for the 2 days of discussion that's going to take place here. The first, Bangladesh, when it became independent, was a poor country, vulnerable, poor, very undiversified economy. And in these 54 years, a lot of changes have happened. Changes have happened in Bangladesh, actually. But if you are considering the starting point today, one important starting point, that feature of the starting point we should bear in mind, is that the last 3-4 decades of economic development has essentially relied on what I would call the cheap labor economy. The two economic drivers that everyone talks about, the ready-made garment industry and remittance, both of these are their selling point, so to say, is cheap labor. And it is very important when you're talking of change in 2025 that we are consciously cognizant and ambitious to transcend from that stage, from the stage only of being a cheap labor economy. Because tomorrow's challenges, AI was mentioned, other technological issues were mentioned. Cheap labor cannot be the driving force for the changes that we are talking and we are desiring for. And how do we do that? That is, of course, the discussion for the next 2 days. But it's very important that we do not remain trapped in the allure and the success of the cheap labor economy. Because success of yesterday is not the guarantor of success of tomorrow. So it is very important that we bear this in mind. The second important feature of the starting point I want to highlight is about the young people here. We talk of the demographic dividend. Bangladesh has a youth bulge. Right now, the young part of the population is the largest part. And this is, demographers call this the demographic dividend opportunity. When you hear the word dividend, it's a very happy word because it feels like something is coming in my pocket. Money is coming in my pocket. But demographic dividend is a concept. It's not money in your pocket if you have not worked to realize it actually. So where is the demographic dividend? There are brilliant students here, 70 papers have been mentioned again. I mentioned that again. So that's a wonderful testimony to the potential of our young people, of how to realize this demographic dividend. But we need to ask that question. Are we reaping that dividend? Is the demographic dividend coming into our pocket? The third feature of the starting point I want to highlight is that in the economic arena, there is what I call an employment emergency. These young people who are writing papers, they will graduate from this university, and then their next stage is to find the appropriate jobs or livelihoods commensurate with the skills that they have acquired. But the statistics are telling us that this is the key challenge for the younger people. Even the political transformation of 24 was driven first by the dissatisfaction of the young people or the frustration on that front of employment. There's an employment emergency in Bangladesh. That's the third feature. The fourth feature I want to highlight is some disturbing data that must be taken into account. For a last couple of decades, poverty rates had been declining, maybe with slower speed, but my own research organization, PPRC, did a nationwide survey earlier this year. And World Bank actually later on confirmed it also with their own data, that for the first time we are seeing a reversal in the poverty trend. Instead of declining, there's a rise. And then there are reversals on not just these economic indicators. Employment indicator from Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics is saying again a reversal. Social indicators are also showing in reversals. Dropout rate at the primary level has crept up. Girl attendance have fallen. Many of these can be traced back to the disruption of COVID. The COVID had a tremendous impact, not all of which has been analyzed yet in terms of. So there are a number of reversals that we must be cognizant of when you're talking of change. The fourth feature of this starting point I want to highlight is, my friend Didar Hussain, the chair of the Board of Trustees of Independent University, mentioned Vietnam and China, that they are introducing AI at school, etc. What is distinguishing Bangladesh from these countries is not just in terms of these technological adaptation, but I want to distill it to one particular word. In Bangladesh, a word we must begin to give much greater importance is speed. We are not looking only for change, creeping change. We have to have change with speed. And that's what is distinguishing Vietnam. In 2004, when Bangladesh was bracketed with Vietnam in the next 11, we are almost at par. Today they have broken ahead, significantly broken ahead. Speed is a quality we must have. There are flyovers and roads in Dhaka city, but if you look at the average speed of a car, some statistic is showing it has slowed to a crawl. We are not having this absence of speed is one of the feature of the starting point we must bear in mind. But the fifth part of the starting point I want to highlight, despite all of these, there is the most important resource on which we feel confident to talk about change with speed. And that's the resilient psychology among people. Despite all of these changes, despite all of these reversals, somehow our people at large refuse to give up. They simply refuse to give up. They may be totally frustrated with everything, employment, quality of public service, etc., but they refuse to give up. And this mindset itself is the most important resource we have to tap if we have to craft a change process forward with speed. We have also had I just want to not take us too much of time, that in the last, say, 1.5 decades or so, we have had a certain model of economic governance, which I call the failed model of economic governance, because it delivered partial transformation, but created the ground reality for many of the reversals that I mentioned earlier. And, features of these are the underperformance in resource mobilization, leading to debt-driven development, which is creating now Bangladesh, 1/4 of our budget goes up or more just to pay the interest for our debt, actually. And there is rampant expenditure inefficiency. We have expenditures, but not efficient expenditures. And of course, poor ease of doing business environment. And sometimes these lead to those who are acquiring wealth in the Bangladesh context often don't feel safe to keep it here. And there is the problem of capital flight, which doesn't keep the capital in the country, actually. And therefore, the whole sustainability at risk. So I think we have to do a deep dive into the model of economic governance, which has been in place, parts of which are still in place, which need to be looked into and transformed. So I come to my last part of this brief introductory, let's say, talk. What are the key pillars of change that we should focus on? Bangladesh has millions of issues. This two-day conference can have another 20 days, and they will not exhaust the range of topics which needs to be discussed. But the question is, what are the critical issues? What are the priority issues? I want to highlight 4 pillars of change. on which we must get our act right. The first pillar is quality basic education and the skills ecosystem. This is absolutely central. IUB is doing a great job in preparing at least a segment of our young people for the challenges of tomorrow. But obviously IUB's scope is limited. As a whole, the industries, the corporates who will need to think about innovative investment tomorrow will require that skilled manpower. And that skilled manpower should not simply be brought from abroad to fill the gap here. It has to be generated from within. So quality basic education and the skills ecosystem. And skills here, I would say that it is, I'm sure IUB does that. When we use the word skills, we must always keep an additional focus on soft skills. Soft skills are a critical capital for today's world, actually. And those soft skills are often missed out in our formal education system. The soft skills are the ones which actually make a difference in how the human capital becomes a more important driver of change. So that's the first pillar. We have to get that right. And that requires all actors in the system getting together, including the government itself, but also private sector and the social sector. The second pillar that I want to highlight is that we must look for, and we are looking for it actually, and on the ground people are actually creating the footprints for it. New growth drivers are needed. For too long, even now, our imagination is dominated by two growth drivers, RMG and remittance. Tomorrow, like Apex Footwear is here, leather, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, IT services. There are many other potential growth drivers waiting to be supported through a policy process. They are already creating the possibilities. Agriculture, I should inform everyone, and I'm sure there's a focus here also. Agro-processing, various parts of agriculture has tremendous growth potential. And AI is actually also entering agriculture in terms of weather forecasting, in terms of smart use of inputs, etc., etc., even in terms of managing market interface with the producers. So this search for new growth drivers is the second pillar, and in that, there has to be an additional focus on employment-rich sectors. Sectors whose employment potential are also very high, and that for Bangladesh is a very important priority. The third pillar that I want to highlight is the issue of governance. Now, governance discourse in Bangladesh, around the world, often has been driven by very feel-good paradigms. These are all very important words. Accountability, transparency, all these are absolutely important. But what has been missing is the focus on results. Governance has to produce results. Otherwise, we have to continuously go back and look at the governance structure. Where is it falling short? That's why I'm calling this pillar governance for speed. Because speed is what we want. The entrepreneur, their worst nightmare is the loss of time. Bureaucrats have all the time in the world. For them, time is an infinite resource. There's no problem with time. Decision, why not? We'll take it next year. For the entrepreneurs, decisions have to be made today actually. If they want to move ahead, if they want to carve a place in the competitive global marketplace. So how do we create governance for speed? That I hope will exercise your attention. This is a critical third pillar, and we have to actually challenge the governance paradigms itself and really look at this issue of this impactful governance. You know, creative destruction is a wonderful idea. But if those who perhaps need to be destroyed, if they're in charge, creative destruction will never take off. That's maybe an exaggeration, but just I'm highlighting this issue that governance for speed has to be the third pillar for change that we look for. And the fourth pillar is a semi-political pillar. And I think I want to, in this August gathering, I really want to venture and really suggest this fourth pillar also as a very important driver of change. Professionals and entrepreneurs need to create a new coalition within society. They need to come together. I've talked with Nasim Manzoor a couple of days ago, talked about the idea of a coalition of the willing to bring together professionals and entrepreneurs, not to form a political party, but to really be an impactful driver of and a pressure group for really generating the policy visions, driving the policy changes which are necessary. In Bangladesh context, in many other countries, even if you look at Vietnam or China, etc., there, of course, the state has a much bigger role. We don't have that here. But in other countries too, the world of the entrepreneurs and the professionals are a very important pillar of how change happens. If you look at, the agencies which have driven the transformation in Japan, in South Korea, even in Vietnam and other places, those need to come into existence in Bangladesh. This, I have to be brutally honest here, our business associations are actually not business associations. They're an extension of the political class. They don't represent business. They represent narrow, parochial interest of certain groups. Business associations no longer actually, in a way, fulfill or serve that term for which we use the word business association. So I think in Bangladesh, a fourth pillar has become very necessary. A new coalition of entrepreneurs and professionals, a coming together and crafting collective strategies, collective action agendas, and all the while proving or also putting themselves for scrutiny in terms of efficacy, authenticity, etc., etc. So we should be mindful of the starting point, where we stand. We need to be cognizant of the failed economic governance model, and we need to really focus, embrace, act on the four pillars of change that I mentioned. Bangladesh and its people have really, in the change in July, August 2024, the larger message of that was not just a political message. Sure, a political change happened. The larger message from the people in the way I understood my interaction with grassroots, that they want to be a much more respectful, dignified, recognized actor on the global stage. They feel that they have those ambitions. Even if you go to a village today, a young person, even with this low quality education maybe, they are very smart adapter of technology. Our PPRC survey actually showed how the population is ready, digitally ready for opportunities. The digital stake, people have really put themselves into that. So the message from the people, I would say, a change, a new journey, upward, but not just upward, but it's an upward where everyone has a chance through their own competence, and where the values of a more higher level ideas of well-being dominate what our economic activities should be driving for. So I do hope these 2 days of conference, I'm sure the specific sessions will elaborate the details of how we must craft this strategy for change. But from my side, I would really have finished on these, in a way, big ticket ideas, and hope these find some resonance in the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman. Like a true researcher, he analyzed the problem and came up with 4 pillars of solution for changes. So I'll take a couple of questions if you have any for the keynote speaker.
Yes, we have a question.
I am Torun Chakraborty, Economics, IUB. Actually, your lecture always enlightened us. And you are the only intellectual I listen to in Bangladesh. In fact, I don't call you an intellectual. I call you a scholar. So you explain things in your own terms. This is amazing. The way you explained, this is amazing. This is really thoughtful, insightful.
Please ask the question.
But actually, in your suggestions or lecture, I think 2 things seems to be missing. In fact, you people talked about rarely efficiency in the light of Solo model. You scholars or intellectuals rarely talked about efficiency in the light of Solo model. And another point I would love to mention that in your proposal, you didn't mention quality of education and culture. In fact, you people rarely talk about superstructure of the country. So I would love you to shed some light on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think, mention education, but you're right. Culture is a larger context, and I think if we are looking for governance at speed, we'll also have to, governance cannot be just bureaucratic issues. Governance is about also how state and society interface, how they interact. So I fully take your point that these issues of the culture is so important because you are right, perhaps that could have been a 5th pillar, because social cohesion is absolutely critical for a society to move ahead with speed. The social cohesion is not just policy. It's about how peace within society is maintained, how social groups find a common interest in supporting each other, etc. So I would I do appreciate your contribution to that particular additional angle. Social cohesion is an economically important issue, because countries, we have seen countries at conflict are not realizing their economic potential because they are having to waste their resources in simply maintaining peace. Many parts of Asia, Africa, Latin America is the same thing. So I think thank you very much for adding that fifth pillar.
Professor Hassan Habib.
Thank you very much. Once again, Dr. Hossein Rahman has given us a very interesting, thought-provoking speech. A few points. First is your point on the role of the Chamber of Commerce is extremely important. I'll give you a contrasting example. What people don't realize is that a country like Vietnam, which is nominally or even actually socialist and so on, but the Chamber of Commerce there are so active and dynamic in terms of demanding reforms in the country for the general good. And I say that firsthand because I've hosted them in Washington and I met them in Vietnam. So that is an example that perhaps our chambers need to follow. My question to you is on a matter of speed. I think it's extremely important, but would you frame it like a sense of urgency? What we really need in Bangladesh, and I've heard it from different professionals, people who are genuinely committed, that we need a sense of urgency and it is missing in Bangladesh. How do we get it?
Thank you. Certainly, I think its sense of urgency is one aspect of this point about speed, but I think also specific rules, specific way the policy process works. I think, for example, if I look at, say, the NGO Bureau as a government agency, how there was some policy changes that if the approval is not forthcoming within a defined reasonable period of time, it will deem to have been approved. This is a policy change which speeds up the process. So I think absolutely it's a sense of urgency, and it is also specific rules, policy changes. Bangladesh has many examples. Yesterday I was talking to two advisors actually. There are many examples where policies were taken and then they have languished for a decade because the follow-up step of rules were not made. So I think sense of urgency, but then specific policy and institutional steps.
Thank you very much. We are running short of time, actually. As usual, every conference struggles with time. We have a lot to discuss and looking forward. Please give a big round of applause for Professor Hossein Rahman.
I'm here.
Thank you, Dr. Rahman, for your wonderful insights and enriching us with your far-reaching thoughts. May I kindly request Mr. Didar A. Hussain, Honorable Chairman, Board of Trustees, Independent University, Bangladesh, and Honorary General Chair, Dean Acting School of Business and Entrepreneurship, Professor Dr. Raisul Awal Mahmood, and the General Chair of Icebtm 2025, Professor Dr. Mamun Habib, to join us on stage to hand over the token of appreciation to our guests.
Thank you, gentlemen. May I request our Chief Patron of Icebtm 2025, Mr. Didar A. Hussain, to hand over the crest to our chief guest, Hossein Rahman. Can we have a big round of applause? Thank you, gentlemen. Now, may I request our Honorary General Chair of ICBTM 2025, Professor Dr. Raisul Awal Mahmood, to hand over a token of gesture to our Honorable Vice Chancellor. Can we please appreciate the moment with a round of applause, please? Now, thank you, gentlemen. May I request our General Chair of ICBTM 2025, Professor Dr. Mamun Habib, to hand over a token of gesture to our Beauty Chair, the Chief Patron of ICBTM 2025. Can we have a round of applause for this, please? Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? We'll now proceed to the industry talk, where distinguished industry leaders will share practical insights and experiences linking research to real-world business practices.
To begin the industry talk, please join me in welcoming our distinguished speaker, Mr. Syed Nasim Manzoor, Managing Director, Apex Footwear Limited, and Dr. Derek Westwall, Supply Chain Thought Leader from Oregon State University, USA. Please welcome them with a big round of applause.
Just a little arrangement here. Please help, volunteers, please help our guests to take over the seats. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are also honored to have Professor Dr. Jonathan Liu from IBS, International Business School, Manchester, United Kingdom, and Professor Dr. Daniel W. Lund, Pro Vice Chancellor, Independent University, Bangladesh, as our session chairs. Let's give our dignitaries a round of applause as they take over the stage. Thank you, gentlemen. A briefings about our session chair, Professor Jonathan Liu, is a renowned academic and leading scholar of global management with over 40 years of experience at several British universities, including Middlesex University, Regent's University London, and Global Banking School. He also served as governance level, including in the roles of Dean and Associate Dean. Professor Jonathan Liu is the chairman of Board of Trustees at Ming AI Institute in London, and he researches in entrepreneurship, venture heritage, performance management. Jonathan Liu is the editor-in-chief of International Journal of Business Performance Management and InterScience Publishers. Dr. Liu is on the Council of National Conference for Universities, professor, a council member of the University's China Committee in London, council member of British Academy of Management, where he is also the chair of a special interest group in performance management. Thank you, sir, for joining here at our conference at ICBTM 2025. May I introduce our another general chair. He's our very own Professor Daniel W. Lund. Is the Pro Vice Chancellor of Independent University, Bangladesh. Before joining IOB, he served as the founding dean of graduate programs and executive education at British Management University in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Over his career, he has held several senior leadership positions across institutions in North America, Asia, Middle East, South Pacific, with expertise in higher education governance, strategic planning, and institutional effectiveness. Dr. Lund has served on academic boards, council, accreditation committee in multiple countries. Dr. Lund's research interests span from leadership in higher education, cross-cultural management, expatriate adjustment, strategic human resource management. He has published extensively in peer-reviewed journals, authored book chapters, and delivered keynote speeches at international conferences. He is also an international faculty fellow at MIT Sloan School of Management, MIT Sloan School of Management, and a member of Academy of Management. Please give our dignitaries a round of applause as they start the session. May I hand over to the microphone to our general chairs to conduct the session, please.
Right. Good morning. Can you hear me at the back? Okay. I shall be asking questions. So I'm kidding. Firstly, it's a pleasure being here, and I hope that I can offer some insights, at least on how not to do it. Okay? Because I am an academic, and as there is the saying, those who can do, and they work in industry, and those who can't teach, and I teach. Okay? But I think most importantly, the theme of today, and I think through the talks that you've heard about the sense of urgency, is very real. Okay? And I think what is also perhaps important is not so much for us, you know, I'm towards my twilight years. Okay? I'm looking at greener pastures, hopefully to graze and not to be buried in. Okay? But more importantly, what about the next generation? Quite recently, I did a talk in London on the Bangladeshi youth community, both in Bangladesh and in the United Kingdom. Very specifically, I compared the youth of London and the youth in Dhaka. And the challenges are very, very real for both youth in both countries. Okay? And the challenge is, how do we deal with the technology that is out there, and how do we actually develop the next generation of workers that will have to be very computerized, very technologically savvy. And I hope that some of the things that you will learn over the next day or two would be of benefit to you, because the technological change, the infrastructure changes, okay, and also perhaps the discourse of what we believe in and the things that the way of doing things has changed, okay? But from my side, I would just really very much say that for the youth of today, you need to just at least try and develop transferable skills, especially if you're moving into industry. Okay, it's not just a rhetoric. Academics like myself, we invent theory, we develop theory, and sometimes theory doesn't really work. Okay, but what it does do is it creates something which is perhaps more important, and that is critical thinking. If you can critically think through the challenges that you're going to be faced with and keep your moral compass, then you're on the right track. Okay? So it's a pleasure to take any questions that you may have later on. Okay? I now concede to my other speaker.
Okay, so our first speaker, Mr. Saeed Nassim Manzoor. If you have the opportunity, especially for the students, read the bios that are provided. And so I'll just say briefly, so as you're listening to our first speaker, keep in mind from his bios, he's dealt with, I'll go to the extremes, from footwear to pharma to self-propelled floating hospitals. And so the thing, I think, especially for students to keep in mind is when you hear speakers talking about their experiences or their ideas or their perspectives, look to the way that they think, not just what they're saying, but the way that they're thinking and the breadth of the wide variety of things that they deal with. So an entrepreneurial mind can cover so many topics, so many areas. It's not about exactly it's not about footwear necessarily. It's about the entrepreneurial mind that takes advantage of the footwear or takes advantage of the pharma. So as our first speaker shares with us, please keep that in mind and welcome him.
Right. So thank you, Chair of the session, distinguished fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, once again, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Let me see if I can find my presentation again. There's microphones here. Give me a second. Can we get rid of these microphones? Yeah, just click it out. Thank you. That's it, yeah. Thank you so much. There you go. Thank you so much. So I'm deeply aware that we haven't had any coffee breaks yet, so it's a little difficult to get people excited in the room in the morning. So I'd like to try and talk a little bit about what Dr. Hossein Zillur talked about, the resilient, and I quote, the resilient psychology. And I will start by saying to especially the young people in the room and our friends from abroad, sorry, just use this. By putting some pictures up on the screen, and the question that I would like to ask you is, what do golf clubs, ice-breaking vessels, Timberland boots, a caregiver in Japan, and a Qatar Airways pilot have in common? Any ideas? Sir? That is correct. So I would say to you that all of them are actually made in Bangladesh. So when we talk about manufacturing in Bangladesh, I think we need to understand the historical context. And for our distinguished friends from abroad, I'd like to give you a quick rundown of where manufacturing started and where we've ended up today, as Dr. Hossein Zillur has pointed out already so brilliantly. It's very interesting to me that when you do the research, you find out that the Bangladesh actually had a higher per capita income in 1947 than any other Southeast Asian country other than Japan. And if you looked at pre-independence Bangladesh when we were part of Pakistan, our manufacturing was based on factors such as raw materials. You had jute, so you had a jute industry. You had tea, so you had a tea industry. It was quite capital intensive. We've heard anecdotal stories of how people used to come here to study efficiency, a word you don't hear a lot in Bangladesh, and a positive word. How Indonesians used to come here to study textile manufacturing. These are stories that I've heard from my father. And then, of course, we had the dominance of West Pakistan over our entire economy. So East Pakistan was literally a production base for West Pakistan. But the ownership, the capital, and the entrepreneurship came mostly from the West. East was mainly the source of the famous words used by Dr. Hossein Zillur, cheap labor. From there, post-independence, country became independent. We inherited a war-ravaged economy. We inherited a hugely depleted intellectual pool. We inherited a country that was literally left with no hope. Yet, we survived. Not only we survived, we endured. But as was the fashion in the time, we discovered something called license Raj. And this emergence of the state-owned enterprises, for me, was the first detriment to manufacturing efficiency and excellence. It was the style at the time. It was political wisdom at the time. But I think it stifled entrepreneurial culture. The culture that was emerging was only coming into its being in what I like to call the roaring 80s. And the two identified drivers, as Dr. Hossein said, and pure coincidence, RMG and remittance. Yes, they have played a huge part, but they cannot get us where we need to go. They've brought us here. And if you look at simple things like policy innovation, it's so important for manufacturing. I'm very interested to see how industrial policy is making a comeback, even in the Western world. Leaving everything to the market is not working. Interventions are needed, and how we do those interventions is important. So if you talk about two simple innovations, the bonded warehouse license, which gave you access to duty duty-free raw materials for re-export, the back-to-back LC, which allowed basically entrepreneurs to buy material based on contracts, seems like quite matter of fact maybe to our friends from abroad. These were radical, radical policy changes which unfettered the private sector. That created these labor-intensive, scalable, export-oriented manufacture, whether it was garments, seafoods, leather industry, even tea was being exported in the 80s. It also did another huge social driver of change. It brought women into the workforce. And that, to me, is the single largest contribution of the RMG sector to Bangladesh. It should not be the dollars. It's about the empowerment of women into our society. And that created its own multiplier effects, whether it's housing, whether it's banking, whether it's insurance. All of these industries came up on the back of the export-oriented sector, and much like a lot of the East Asian stories that we know. You fast forward into the 90s, we start to see the emergence of the domestic industry. Local consumption, import substitution, whether it's pharmaceutical, whether it's construction materials, whether it's consumer durables, we start to see a whole new kind of manufacturing happen in Bangladesh. But then, what's the future? The future cannot be what we have done in the past. It's beyond the cheap labor story, as Dr. Hossein Zillur so powerfully said. It's within and beyond RMG. There's more and more areas within RMG, within apparel that we can go into, but it's also beyond. Bangladesh is now proudly exporting sleeping bags, we're exporting bicycles, and we're exporting, as you saw, ship-breaking vessels. But we have not broken out of the scale issue. We need to scale. We need to identify certain sectors. The time has come to cherry pick. We cannot have 62 sectors and hope to grow. It hasn't worked anywhere, it's not going to work here. We've talked about domestic consumption, huge opportunity in what we call backward linkage or vertical integration in the supply chain. Bangladesh proudly has a 98% locally produced pharmaceutical industry. But the bulk of that API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, is imported. Coincidentally, I had a very interesting meeting yesterday with one of the largest Japanese corporations in the world. And they are extremely keen to reduce their dependency on API from two countries, namely China and India, and work with Bangladesh. But we are still want to make products. Sometimes intermediate is an easier way into the global value chain rather than the final product. I don't think we've done enough work there. It's an inside-out approach. We are seeing a lot of factories that were concentrating on the local now looking at beyond. And I think the time has come for Bangladesh to imagine, dream of brands beyond Bangladesh, and we'll talk about that. ESG focus, absolutely. This is the new manufacturing. If you are not ESG focused, despite whatever's happening in the White House today, we will not be sustainable. Whether it's the new due diligence laws in Europe, whether it's the New York Act in terms of carbon trading, all of that means that you need to reinvent the manufacturing paradigm. Labor rich and scalable. Dr. Hossein Zillur said something that I always say. When we say cheap labor, first of all, it's derogatory. I find it very insulting to people. Second, it actually was never a true statement. We had low-cost labor that has not been productive. When you have low cost with low productivity, you're not cheap. So I think we need to now reinvent that story. And we need to talk about labor-rich industries. If you look at Cambodia, you look at Vietnam, you look at India. India has a textile industry and an IT industry. The IT industry employs about 8 billion. The textile industry employs 80 million. The textile industry will always get more importance in India. You need to create those jobs. So that balance, I think, is very important. And of course, brands made in Bangladesh. So going forward, we have created brands. And if you are on the screen here, I would like, especially for my friends from abroad, but also for our young students, I see a lot of excitement with international brands, which is great. But let's take a moment to appreciate some of the brands that we have on the screen here. Whether you talk about Radhuni, which is a ready-to-eat brand in Bangladesh, as you know, working in spice and food. We have ACI, we have Square, we have Tir, we have Crown Cement, we have Ispahani, Tea. These are domestic brands. These are brands that have endured in Bangladesh for decades. We have our friends from Rahim Afrouz and Abdul Monem here who will talk about their brands. We have created these brands. So Bangladesh is starting to brand, and these brands now need to scale and need to go beyond. My favorite, of course, as some of you may have heard, is that little symbol on the left-hand side, Shah Amanat Lungi. Everybody wants to be the next Bill Gates, and everybody wants to be the next Jeff Bezos. Why don't we have a second national lungi brand? Why does it always have to be tech and the next useless app that nobody wants to use? We need you people, young people, to solve real problems. All of these industries have real problems. Climate change is a problem. Productivity is low in our factories because of this. But yet I get pitched ideas every day about yet another marketplace, the next Airbnb. I think if you were to apply the amazing intellectual acumen that you have to solve problems for these industries, we would have a great, great future. Dr. Hossein Zillur talked about this already, the bulge. And if you see the bulge, it's right in the middle, right? It's the demographic dividend. What for me is very interesting is that 68% of our population is working age. We have a sweet spot in manufacturing, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to last 15 to 20 years. And after that, we are going to have a dependency ratio problem that we all know about. I know that all the PhDs of economics know this much better than I do here, but this is a problem that we're already seeing. We are seeing that the average age is going up. We've seen what's happened to South Korea. We're seeing what's even happening in China today. It's no longer about wage rates in China. Nobody wants to work in a factory in China. And I know that for a fact because we work in China a lot. So the unemployment ratio in Bangladesh is actually a cause for concern. Despite a very, very good performance from about 1991 till 2013 and then going on up to 2019, as Dr. Hossein Zillur again has said, we are seeing that unemployment rate, particularly for educated youth, is going up. So the reversals that he talked about in terms of social indicators are real. If you look at it, in 2025, our unemployment rate is 5.08% from a 3.66% in 2024 estimated. 2024 was the highest in 3 years. But what for me is even more alarming is youth unemployment at 11.46, almost 11.5%. Why is that? Why is there this huge gap, mismatch between supply and demand? Because is manufacturing creating the kind of jobs that the young people of Bangladesh want? Or are those jobs at all practical in the context of Bangladesh? There is a huge mismatch. And I think great conferences like this and papers that we will hear hopefully will address some of these questions. Now, the Bangladesh GDP growth story, of course, is real. And as, again, Dr. Hossein Zillur has said, we've had very, very strong growth for a sustained period. Whether that growth has been inclusive, whether that growth has been captured by certain, we can always talk about that. But we cannot deny that Bangladesh has progressed. I think the tragedy for all of us is that we didn't progress where we could and should have gone. But we are seeing a slowdown, and if you look at the share of the three sectors of the economy that drive an economy, agriculture, industry, and services, manufacturing, which is the gray box, continues to stay fixed. And we're seeing the emergence and the strengthening of the service sector. Now, this is good. This happens everywhere as countries mature, countries develop. My personal fear is premature. My personal fear is the nature of jobs in the service sector are informal. They're not as accessible for everybody, and they also tend to be all temporary in nature. So we need to create solid, good quality manufacturing jobs that people will aspire to. And I'm not sure that we're doing that fast enough because our manufacturing industries are not transforming fast enough. Now, if you look at what manufacturing in Bangladesh is today, we're already the second largest apparel maker in the world. We're self-sufficient in construction materials like cement. A lot of this is import substitution. But what I like to call the MAC appeal, the middle and the affluent class. Bangladesh has 32 million people who are MAC. That's larger than the population of Australia. We have a market that people want. If you see the kind of foreign investment that's flowing in, Philip Morris, not necessarily what you want. It's nicotine patches for export, believe it or not. It's Honda making motorcycles and exporting from Bangladesh. It's LG, the Korean white goods specialist, who recently set up a plant in Bangladesh and have already reached $100 million of revenue in the first 2 years of operation. Things are changing in Bangladesh in the manufacturing space. The big driver for me also is source diversification. The conversations with US brands today is, can we have a China-neutral supply chain? We don't want this dependence on. So this is where we have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. We need to find those spots. What we love most about manufacturing, for me, is the job creation potential. As we know, 2024, the change that happened started because of jobs. Every country in the world is struggling to create enough quality jobs for our youth. Manufacturing can do that for Bangladesh, and as I've said, it has multiplier effect on local demand. Now, what are the new drivers of manufacturing in Bangladesh? I would Like to put some up on the screen. We believe consumer durables, light engineering, mobile phones. More than 51% of the phones in Bangladesh are actually locally made, not assembled, made. So it's no longer jute, it's no longer tea, it probably will not be leather for much longer. It will be mobile phones, it will be other things. Pharmaceuticals, furniture, garments, shoes, fast-moving transportation, all kinds of manufacturing. I met a young entrepreneur, graduate from a very fine university in Bangladesh, one of the best in engineering. He makes small cups, disposable, recycled paper cups for the coffee conferences that we have, such as this. Entrepreneur, right? Not going down the usual path of yet another garment factory, yet another shoe factory. I met another young, 3 people. They had a problem with pet food. As you know, emerging middle class, people start to keep pets. And pet food in Bangladesh, 100% imported. Some of you have cats and dogs. Very expensive. Huge quality problem. They saw an opportunity. They have now started their own pet food manufacturing and distribution company. Now we can argue, oh, does Bangladesh need pet food? I think those arguments are stale. There is a demand, they saw a need, they fulfill the need, and they are manufacturing. They're not trading. They're not bringing in pet food from the lowest cheap. They are actually set up a plant. So manufacturing doesn't always have to be big. Motorcycle, we can see the growth, although there was a recent slump with what happened, but we can see the large players, people like Honda, already manufacturing for local and export. Yamaha also beyond local. Handset, we talked about mobile phones. Massive investments have already come in. There are problems with the tax structure that we'll talk about, but there are opportunities there, and opportunities that we have missed. I'd like to talk about a missed opportunity, small company called Samsung. Wanted to come to Bangladesh many, many decades ago. We've talked about it. I talk about it in all my slides. How government policy can be so damaging. This one company, Vietnam, is actually quite sad that their export of this one company in Vietnam went down from 65 billion to 54.4 billion. If I'm not mistaken, that's more than the entire export of Bangladesh. This company came to Bangladesh, looked around, wanted, I think, about 100 acres of land in Chittagong, and we said no. They said, thank you very much, we're going to Vietnam. I really want that to sink in for a second. The power of the bureaucrat, as someone said a little bit earlier, the value of time, Dr. Hossein Zillur said, is extremely dangerous. We need to be able to hold people accountable. No is also an answer, but you cannot keep me hanging. Entrepreneurs need decisions. We need to beat the market. We need speed. We need urgency. We need, if you forgive my language, violent execution. The time for creeping change, as he correctly said, is over. These investments are footloose. They go where they are wanted, where they find the best advantages, and we miss opportunities time and time again. So Bangladesh, lots of great stories, but we have some challenges. First one is the ease of doing business. Now this is where government needs to do. Private sector cannot fix this. Why is it that it takes 12 days for the ship to come from China to Chittagong, but then Chittagong, the customs process can take another 4 days, 5 days, sometimes 7 days. The speed to market part of it is not emphasized enough. And if you look at the market today, whether it's local or export, labor cost is not everything. Speed to market and logistics is just as important. We need to improve our efficiency ratings here. Some amazing work is being done. We are seeing improvement. And I, for one, will personally support when we bring in internationally proven operators in a transparent bidding way and let them improve efficiency. We cannot go on having poor logistics and hope to be a manufacturing powerhouse. The other area where Bangladesh has a huge opportunity is what we call compliant manufacturing, or what we call ethical sourcing. We can't match China for scale. Maybe we can't match Vietnam for speed, but we can certainly work on compliance. We can certainly work on greening our factories, and Bangladesh already is a high number of green factories in the world. We need to work beyond soft skills and hard skills to also soft infrastructure and hard infrastructure. The hard infrastructure is easy if you have good governance and you have money. You build highways, you build container terminals, you build deep sea ports, all of that's happening. The left-hand side of that screen is very difficult. It's the soft infrastructure. I purposely use the word ruthless and transparent actions to improve governance. there has to be consequence for bad behavior and incentives for good behavior for the private sector and the public sector. You have to send the right signal to the market. We have to reduce costs of doing business. I've been saying this for a long time. Why do we have a separate labor ministry, an industries ministry? We have another welfare ministry. Why don't we have an HRD ministry, human resource development ministry? That is what Vietnam has done. Even Indonesia and India followed that. We have human capital. We need to have one. And very important, Dr. Hossein Zulu touched about it. I think we need a restoration of balance of power between the bureaucracy and the people. The word is civil servant. Serve the people. I feel sometimes that we don't have enough of a balance. Thank you. So what is needed to boost all of this? I'm not going to go through all of this because it's important that we know this. I would consider one thing, accelerate ease of doing business reforms. We need to make manufacturing more attractive in Bangladesh rather than trading, and we need to do this fast. So if you want to actually diversify and you want to remain competitive, there has to be ways that you can do that. And I have a favorite saying from Noam Chomsky. And he basically paraphrased to say that China is a great manufacturing sector, but it's actually mostly an assembly plant. It assembles parts and components. High technology comes from surrounding industrial, more advanced industrial centers, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, the United States, and it basically assembles them. Manufacture doesn't have to be from A to Z. It doesn't have to be from scratch. You can start by assembly and then you gain technology and you grow. And yes, markets will change. Europe, this is a quote from the Wall Street Journal, is becoming poorer. We need to find new markets. Let's see where the new markets are. Bangladesh, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia. These are the most emerging middle-class populations in the world. So my final thought, manufacture demands just as much thought and strategy as the product. If you don't pay attention to your manufacturing, it will limit the kind of product that you can build. Bangladesh has some great material, but most of all, Bangladesh has human capital. Let's turn that into a manufacturing powerhouse. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So, Derek is ready. Okay, thank you very much for that. Perhaps we can bring on Dr. Westphal. Would you be able to do a presentation? And then we can take questions on later. And again, please have a read on the biopic. But more importantly, okay, Dr. Westphal has been a strong supporter in the supply chain management area, and in particular with his 4 decades of experience with Boeing and plus others. Okay? And we wait to be enlightened with his experiences on things that he has learned to share with us. Please, Dr. Westphal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is, by the way, complete honor, privilege, pleasure to come from the United States to this conference. I really had no idea what to expect. First conference for me, so I'm here to really talk about details about supply chain, right? That's my career. That's what I spent 38 years doing. So I'm not this big picture person, other than supply chain is very, very important to your business, right? But again, thank you, Dr. Habib, for having me and welcoming me. Yeah. How do you? You okay? Better? Okay. Sorry. That's probably I'm not used to this, but all right. So just a little bit about myself. Dr. Derek Westphal from. I live in Oregon, the U.S. 38 year supply chain career. The last 15 of that I spent at the Boeing Company. And what I'm going to talk to you about today was really about the last 5-6 years of the journey for me. Currently, I also teach at 2 universities in Oregon. I have 10 supply chain certifications. I have my Master Black Belt, Lean Six Sigma, and a PMP. Not that that all matters, but really supply chain is my domain, right? That's what I'm here to talk about. All the speakers so far have talking about this high level vision for Bangladesh, and I'm sitting there trying to think, well, how am I going to tie my presentation to all this stuff? And I think I found a way, hopefully. So what I want to talk about is the use of a 3PL, third-party logistics, in an organization's supply chain. So when we talk about a third-party logistics or a 3PL, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to tie this back into this conference so far. And really, if I think about supply chain, what is supply chain? It's three main things, right? I buy something from my suppliers, I make something in my factory, and I deliver something to my customers. Or I also receive stuff in from my suppliers. That's all logistics, right? And so when we think about supply chain, it's really those three main processes: source, make, deliver. I buy something, I make something, I deliver something. And we're really talking about adding manufacturing into Bangladesh. So I think this is where my presentation will add some value, right? Is that as a manufacturer, most manufacturers are really, really good at doing something. They're good at building shoes, or they're good at doing pharmaceuticals, or they're good at building garments. I saw a graphic of motorcycles. You're good at building motorcycles. Great. So you're really good at something. What manufacturers typically are not good at is the logistics part, the warehousing part, keeping track of their inventory, those types of things, those non-value kind of activities that the customer doesn't really want to pay for, right? So they provide this service. And if you think about supply chain, remember I just told you the three main branches: source, make, deliver. Well, manufacturers are really good at the make. That's what they focus on. We're really, really good at the make. If you have good suppliers, the sourcing part should work as well. So that you got the source and the make working together. But if your deliver part, you're losing parts in the warehouse, you can't manage your warehouse, you're not providing timely shipments to your customers, those types of things, then your deliver part doesn't work, and supply chain starts bogging down. And just so you understand where I come from, is that I always have tried to make the supply chain as strong as possible, because whoever has the best supply chain will win in the marketplace, guaranteed 100% every time, okay? So if your supply chain, okay, is this better? Don't move so much. That's all I do, I move. Okay, all right. Okay, so if we think about manufacturing, to be competitive, you should focus on your core competencies. And typically, manufacturers, that's what they're good at, is manufacturing, not so much the warehousing. Okay? So what a 3PL, a third-party logistics, would do is do the warehousing and transportation part of your supply chain to make your supply chain stronger. And it lets you focus on your core competencies, improve your quality, improve your efficiency in the products that you make. So this is really what my study is about how to make these 3PLs more efficient, to make the manufacturers more efficient, okay? So why would a manufacturer use a 3PL? So in most factories today, and maybe I'm wrong, but in Bangladesh, I'm assuming that there's a warehouse function inside the factories where they receive material in, they store the material, and then when it comes time to use that material manufacturing, they bring it out, and the manufacturer gets to use it. Is that pretty good, accurate? Yeah. Okay. What a 3P, and so that is non-value added space. That warehouse is non-value added space. Like that's space that we're not adding value to our goods, we're not contributing in any way, it's just taking up space. It's a necessary evil. Don't get me wrong, we have to warehouse and inventory our stuff, but if we're not good at it, it's an option to be outsourced, right? So that allows the ability to focus on their core competencies. We're not looking for inventory, we're not trying to find lost inventory, we're not dealing with quality issues, those types of things. So then if we can focus on our core competency, that's going to make our product stronger. We're allowed to hopefully grow the business, get more business because people know us for our quality and not for our poor customer service. So that's kind of the general idea of why we would use this, right? There are certain things that a 3PL can provide. They can provide kitting, which I'll show here in the next so that you understand what I'm talking about. Light assembly. I saw golf clubs up there earlier. Nike used to import golf clubs, and the 3PL would actually take the shafts of the golf clubs and screw the heads of the clubs on them, and that was light assembly. So that's something else that they can do. They can provide QA, light QA or some QA, quality assurance processes, and they can also provide packaging and postponement. Postponement is the act of getting finished goods in the warehouse and final packaging for specific customers. Okay. All right, so here's some pictures of when I talk about kitting. And at Boeing, what I did was I set up the first 3PL inside Boeing Commercial for the fabrication division so that we could start improving our supply chain at the Boeing company. And so when I talk about kitting, if you think about an airplane or you think about large assemblies, this is what I'm really talking about. Is these right here are kits. These parts will go on these kits. And so these assemblers here, think of them as surgeons. They're like the surgeons that are getting ready to operate, and they have everything they need right there. Whereas in the old days, what they would have is they would just have parts stuffed in these boxes, and these mechanics would be out looking for parts, trying to find out where's my stuff. And parts would get mixed up, and not everything was there, stuff was lost. So we developed a process at Boeing called kitting. I mean, it's been around. Boeing didn't invent the process, but kitting is what we would do. So the kits are ready for the assemblers to make, and some of these kits, as you can see, are quite large, and some of them have several hundreds of part numbers. So this gets very complex very fast. Try to imagine if I said, hey, I want you to kit my product for me today, you just put it in these boxes and ship it over, and how hard is that, right? It's actually very difficult. There's actually a lot of nuances to it. There's a lot of quality issues to it. There's a lot of variability to this process. And so what happens is the 3PL, you go out for bid, the 3PL says, well, it's going to cost this much per month or per kit or whatever you guys agree upon for price, and then that's how you guys do business. But what happens over time, as you can see by these pictures, is that there's a lot of moving parts in here. There's a lot of components, a lot of parts. Like I said, some of them have several hundred part numbers, and if those part numbers change, or they roll, or they change shape, function, or whatever, they will require change. And so now all of a sudden, what we were doing before, now the rules have changed today, just from yesterday. And so how does the 3PL keep full of that, right? Or how do they keep track of that? So the manufacturers, when they create what they call a statement of work, this is basically the document that I would present to a potential supplier to say, this is what I want you to do. If it's not accurate, then we're going to start out in a bad way automatically, because there's certain expectations, because we're taking this process that we used to do in-house, and now we move it out, okay? And so I've been doing this for years in-house, and now I'm going to give it to somebody else, and I want the same level of performance that I used to get from in-house. It's not possible, okay? That's virtually impossible to do without robust documentation, some sort of training, those types of things, and expectations. So now let's say, okay, well, we figured that out. We got the 3PL on board. We got them up to speed. What happens is, because of this volume of work, and especially in heavy-duty manufacturing industries, airplanes, motorcycles, automotive, because there's so many parts to a car, to an airplane, to a motorcycle, part numbers change all the time, right? And so there's no robust or scope of work changes. Like this is our product mix this month, and then this is our product mix next month, and there's no way to accurately document that, right? And so what happens is, over time, there becomes scope creep. And scope creep is really, really bad for the relationship between a 3PL and the manufacturer, because what happens is that changes the rules. And when I go to bid on the work, I give you the statement of work saying I need receive this amount of people or this amount of product in this amount of time, and it's this volume, and you need to produce this many kits. If that changes, for whatever reason, I've already bid this. It's going to take this many people to fill this. It's going to take this type of equipment. These are the IT solutions we have to make this work, right? And so if the scope changes over time, either I have to add people, or I subtract people, or I need more equipment. There's no way for me to capture that. There's no way as a 3PL to go back to the manufacturer and say, look, I have to hire 20 more people. I had to buy these new pieces of equipment. I had to adopt some new IT infrastructure, and it cost me a bunch of money. And so what happens, and the customer says, yeah, that's right, you're the 3PL, and they expect this customer service level that may or may not happen. So now all of a sudden, the 3PL is thinking, I'm going to make this much money, and the manufacturer says, this is the service I expect, even though there's all these changes, and there's a disconnect between the profit and the actual cost. So now the 3PL is now getting the short end of the stick, and they're not getting the revenue that they expected. So that's the disconnect. That's where the problem happens. That's where it takes place. So some of the study that we came up with, we interviewed automotive, aerospace, defense, and industrial products. These are large, again, those kits that we saw, those types of industries. This is not pharmaceutical. This is not consumer goods. This is heavy-duty equipment type stuff, right? And the study shows that there's a 69% approval rating for all 3PLs by customers. But the 3PLs I'm talking about is significantly lower, because just the volume. Most 3PLs, especially in the US and Europe, they carry freight or they deliver freight, and it's very one-dimensional. This type of 3PL is very complex, very variability is very high in the industry. So what we came up with, and talking with the 3PLs for the most part, is that there needs to be some sort of dialogue or some sort of clause in the statement of work that says, we understand things will change, and here's the mechanism for that. And of all the people that we talked to in the automotive and the aerospace, defense, and industry sectors that we interviewed, none of them had a clause in their statement of work or their contract that said, when things change, let's meet and we'll figure out the costs and we'll share them, or we'll give you money, or whatever it is. So that should be developed. There's no defined process for change management, which is very common in manufacturing, and there's no typical way for 3PLs to formalize the cost increases. So how to improve this is manufacturers really need to invest in a detailed statement of work. They need to invest the time in making sure that it's accurate. The typical manufacturer will spend maybe 100 hours writing a statement of work. Maybe it's a 20-page document. The document we wrote at Boeing, which, by the way, was very successful, was 147 pages. And it's very, very detailed. And we also included a method. After about a year, we said, let's amend this statement of work and add this clause of scope change, because it was very obvious this happened more frequently than people realized. And so just kind of to close, it's just that understand this is a business partnership with your 3PL. They're part of your supply chain, so you need to treat them as such, because they're that deliver part of your supply chain. They're 1/3 of your supply chain. And if this is not good, then your supply chain is not going to be good. So anyway, I just want to kind of close that up. I know I had trouble speaking. I like to move around, but I just kind of got away from the high-level stuff and started. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the industry stuff. So if there's any questions, I guess we can take questions. Okay. Yeah, I open it up to questions. I'd love to answer your questions. I'll be around. Feel free to contact me.
Okay, thank you to our two speakers. And in the interest of time, we'll take 2 questions for each speaker, so a total of 4 questions. So somebody have a question? If we can get a microphone to them.
Sorry.
Thank you very much for the insightful presentations there. My question is for Derek. I'm not so sure if you encountered this challenge of confidentiality. How would you manage the issue of confidentiality, especially where you've got competing clients that you've got to work for?
So from a 3PL standpoint and the business partner standpoint, the customer, there's the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements are in place. There's full confidentiality, and in the U.S., if you break those confidentiality, I mean that's how you get sued. That's how you get out of business. That's your reputation. So everything starts with that NDA, that non-disclosure agreement, where we sit down, say this is how we're going to do business. Oh, by the way, sign this, and that's how we do it. And literally, I worked at Boeing, high-level type security type stuff. I never had a breach of that confidentiality from a supplier. So it's just implied and understood that that's how it's done.
Thank you. The next question.
Wait, one more question.
So my question is from Mr. Naseem Manzoor. So again, the example of Vietnam came up. So Vietnam quintupled its foreign direct investment from $20 billion to almost $100 billion in 15 years. And that is how it has diversified. Enormously. In fact, tomorrow in my keynote address, I'll be giving a number of interesting diagrams and all of this. But in your talk, you did not bring out the aspect of the importance of FDI and global supply chains. Both of these are essential if we have to export. And my second point is, if we want to employ our people productively in large-scale way, can we do it without exporting to the global markets?
Yeah, as usual, 2 great questions. I think the first question, I alluded to it, but you're absolutely right. The FDI part of it is important not just for the dollars and cents, and I said it's also for the know-how, the network, and the connection to the global value chain. So when I alluded to making the intermediate parts, I mean, if you look at Thailand, Thailand started to make automotive spare parts before they started to make automobiles. So that's a way in, and that's also starting to build the kind of complex supply chains that Dr. Westphal talked about. FDI in Vietnam versus FDI in Bangladesh, this debate has been raging for decades, right? And I gave an example of why FDI did not stay here and went to Vietnam. But I think we should take that comparison of Vietnam with a pinch of salt, because Vietnam is a centrally planned command economy, which is a communist state. And the advantage of that is decision-making is completely brutal. They decide to run a highway through here, they run the highway through here. They give you land at $1 a square meter for 15 years. Now, you can't do that in Bangladesh. So I find this fight all the time that, well, in Vietnam, I can get 100 acres of land. Why can't you give us 100 acres? Well, land is expensive in Bangladesh. So I think we can't do everything, but what Vietnam did is they went in for some very, very, how should I say, radical reduction of bureaucracy and red tape. To give you one example, sir, the amount of documents that you need to set up a company in Vietnam is less than 1/4 of what you need in Bangladesh. What our government people do with these documents, I have no idea. Do they ever read them? I have no idea. So the bureaucracy is a major detriment. The other part is, of course, the rule of law, governance. Investors hate uncertainty. We saw FDI flowing into Myanmar at a time when Myanmar was a military junta. Is that what we want? I don't think so. So I think we need to find that sweet spot between good governance and FDI and investment. The second part about it is absolutely true. I think if you want to create good quality jobs, a lot of that is export-led growth. But on export-led growth, what we heard from Dr. Hossein Zillur in the morning, the labor part of it, or the low-cost labor, was the arbitrage for all our other inefficiencies. So we have higher cost of land, higher interest rates, higher cost of electricity, higher cost of transportation. All of that is arbitrage by keeping your labor costs low. That's not sustainable anymore. Our labor costs have to go up. So to compete on export markets now, because margins are thin, export, we are not a price setter, we are a price taker. So you have to become efficient. So I think the scope for export manufacturing is now greater than before, but it has to be efficiency driven and not low cost labor driven. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, we have time for just one more question. But I can say, could we get a question from a student? Your student? Okay. I know we had one back there, but sorry, we just don't have enough time. But please, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Mohammad Saiful Bari from Department of Finance, Jagannath University. Sir, I have one question that from the previous speaker, that how does 3P help company to reduce logistic cost?
Yeah, so the great question is, how does the 3PL reduce the logistics cost? And what happens in manufacturing is, because it's not a core competency, it's not efficient, and they're not good at it. And you lose inventory, you have to expedite the new inventory in, that's money lost, it's a lost inventory. And what the 3PL does is that's what they do. Our core competency is warehousing or logistics or transportation or all three, whatever it is. And so they're able to streamline processes, they're able to continually improve processes to make them more efficient and make them more costly. And at the end of the day, what your supply chain needs to have is all three: source, make, deliver, all functioning together. And typically in manufacturing, sourcing and manufacturing work pretty well together. That whole warehousing part is deficient. And so adding that 3PL will improve the overall supply chain for the organization.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We extend our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to Mr. Manzoor, Dr. Westphal, Professor Dr. Liu, and Professor Dr. Lund for the vibrant discussion. Let's carry forward the discussion and ideas that are shared today for coming days.
May I now request Honorable Chief Patron of Icbtm 2025 and our BOT Chairman, Mr. Didare Hussain, to come up on the stage. We'll have a short gift exchange ceremony. I also like to call our Honorable Vice Chancellor, and General Chair of Icbtm 2025, Professor Dr. Mamun Habib. Please come forward to the stage, sir.
I cordially request the Honorable Chairman, Board of Trustees, Mr. Didar A. Hussain, to hand over the crest to Dr. Derek Westfall, please. Please give them a big round of applause.
Thank you very much, sir.
And now I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. M. Tamim, to hand over the crest to Dr. Liu.
Dr. Liu,
Mr. Syed Nasim Manzoor. Syed Nasim Manzoor, yes.
yes, Mr. Nasim Modur is receiving crest from our Honorable Vice Chancellor.
And now I cordially request our General Chair, Professor Dr. Mamun Habib, to hand over the token of appreciations to our session chair, please.
To our session chair, Mr. Jonathan Liu is receiving token of gesture from our General Chair, Professor Dr. Mamun Habib. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Mamun Habib is also handing over our token of gesture to Professor Dr. Lund.
Our session chair for today's session.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and precious words. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now go for a brief tea break. If you want to take it, if you can, our parallel sessions will commence very soon. And remember one thing, there are certain things to remember. The session A, B, and E. Yes. Yes. Can you please move to your respective rooms? And it is written in your program schedule. And let me tell you, session A, B, and E will be held in this room, which will be compartmentalized soon. And for session C and D, for session C and D, please move to room number bronze, which is level 4, lift 4. And for session D, move to room splash, which is level 5. Please go to your respective room. Your food has been served there, the brief snacks there. And we're going to start the parallel session soon, so please move to your respective rooms. If you need any assistance, please take help from the volunteers wearing purple ribbons. They will be there to guide you to locate the rooms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your enthusiastic participation.
Room B will be held in the ballroom.
In this room,
This room will be compartmentalized into 3 rooms. And session A,
Ballroom.
B, and E will be held in this room.
Volunteers, can you please move forward? Come to the stage, please. Volunteers. Volunteers of each room, please come forward. Volunteers, may I have your attention, please? Call out the other volunteers as well. Come, sir. What is he doing? So, session A, B, and E will be held in this room, which will be compartmentalized into 3 rooms. And session C and D will be held in room number bronze and splash, which are level 4 and 5 respectively. Volunteers, can you please move forward? Yes. And food is already served in your respective room. Please take help from the volunteers wearing blue ribbons. They will guide you to look at the rooms. Yes, ma'am? Any support you need? Okay. A, B, and E. How don't you know that, sir? Come on. And C and D. Yes. Bronze and splash. Make sure you spread out and help our guests and participants. Just a quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, session A, B, and E will be held in the ballroom, which will be compartmentalized into 3 rooms. And for sessions, yes. Yes. The front side of the room will be session A, the middle of the room will be session B, and the end of the room will be sessions E. And for session C and D, you have to move a bit, go to a brunch room, which is level 4, lift 4, and for session D, move to a splash room, which is level 4, level 5, lift 5. Please take help from the volunteers. Volunteers, please spread out, help our audiences so that they can locate the rooms.
আমার এখানেই সব কাজ।
আচ্ছা এখানে আসো শোনো। এই যে
করে দিতে পারবা? আমি এটা একটু কাজ করে জাস্ট এটা বলে দাও যে তারুণ চক্রবর্তী স্যারের একটা ল্যাপটপ সহ ব্যাগ মিসিং আছে। ইফ সামবডি ফাইন্ডস ইট প্লিজ হ্যান্ড ইট ওভার টু ডক্টর
হ্যাঁ
টু ডক্টর তারুণ চক্রবর্তী।
or to hand over to any of the volunteers.
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ জাস্ট
With purple ribbon?
উইথ পারপাল রিবন এনি অফ দ্য প্যারাল সেশনের টাইমে কেউ থাকবে না, সবাই থাকবে যার যেটা। হ্যাঁ একটু
Excuse me, everyone, asking for your attention. A bag is missing with a laptop in it. If you can find it, please contact with the volunteers with the ID cards with purple ribbon, please. Excuse me, everyone.
আচ্ছা আমি একটা ইমেল দিয়ে দিচ্ছি। হ্যাঁ সেখানে
এখানে ইমেল কোনটা লগইন করা তুমি দেখতে পাচ্ছ।
ল্যাপটপ নিয়ে যেতে হবে এখানে আর ল্যাপটপ থাকবে না।
ল্যাপটপ এখানে রাখতে বললো তো খালেদ স্যার এখানে সবকিছু স্টোর করে রাখতেছে।
খালিদ স্যার এখানে রাখতেছে, এটা
হ্যাঁ।
কন্ট্রোল করব এখন আমরা।
হ্যাঁ
কিন্তু এখানে রাখতে সমস্যাটা যেটা হচ্ছে যে এখান থেকে সবকিছু মুভ করা যাচ্ছে না।
যাচ্ছে না, এটা ঠিক আছে। মাউসটা
না 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 এটা না এটা না।
এটাই দাও এটাই থাক। এটা যেহেতু লগইন করা আছে এটাই থাক।
আচ্ছা নাও আইপি জেড এ আইউবি জিমেল না iub.edu.bd iub.edu.bd
Ladies and gentlemen, please go to your parallel session rooms, and food is already served there. And this particular ballroom will be compartmentalized into 3 rooms, room A, B, and E. The first part of the room will be room A, middle one will be B, and the end of the room will be for parallel session E. E, right sir.
আমাদের গাইড না করে তুমি গেস্টদের গাইড করো, কেউ যদি কনফিউজ থাকে।
Please move to your respective parallel station room. Take help from the volunteers to locate your rooms. They will help you. And food is already served there in your respective parallel rooms. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you know your parallel rooms. Your food is already served in those rooms. And this particular ballroom is for parallel session A, B, and E. Yeah, the first part of the room will be A, the middle one will be B, and the end of the room will be E. And for parallel session C, you have to go in bronze room, which is lift 4. Audiences who belong to parallel session C and D. Yes, your food is already served in your respective room. Please go to your respective room. And therefore C, the room is bronze. Your food is already served there. And for parallel